We are talking about metrics today, and the fun metrics. We're not going to talk about spreadsheets and Excel sheets, things like that, because I don't even know how to work those. But we're going to talk about the metrics that CEOs should track to achieve the freedom that they so desire. And why am I talking about freedom? Because what I have found in speaking to firm owners is they started their firm, me included, because of the freedom that ownership comes with or can come with. And the ownership and the freedom to travel and to practice law in a different country because you're on vacation, the freedom to give your family experiences and your children experiences that you otherwise didn't have, freedom to practice law in the way that your heart desires, to serve your community in the way that God has put you here to serve them. So we're talking about the metrics that a CEO needs to track to ensure that the freedom is actually achieved. So I want you to tune in on this episode and make sure to share it with another firm owner or an aspiring firm owner to make sure that we are tracking the right metrics. We're not tracking calories. We're not tracking our steps. We're not even tracking our water intake, although we definitely should be. So tune in because this is the Attorney CheatCode Podcast. My name is Alicia Jones, and I am a Texas-based attorney. If this is your first time here, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified of future episodes. And of course, if you've been with me before, then thank you so much for rocking with me. Make sure to share this with another attorney so that we can all grow together. The cheat code is not just about having a firm to say you have a firm, but it's because we want to create the firm of our dreams to create the life of our dreams. So let's dive in. So the issue is that attorneys track numbers, but oftentimes numbers are tracked a reaction. They're not tracked as I am continually tracking these because this is what I do to ensure that my business is moving forward. But it's, oh, something happened. Let me see what those numbers are looking like. Or I need to do something. I want to purchase something. I want to buy a building. I want to increase my rental space. I want to hire. So let me now track and let me see what's going on with my numbers. But that is reactionary versus proactive. And it's not the way true CEOs are actually operating. When you're thinking about tracking your numbers, you have to ensure that this is a part of your normal process. This is a part of the way that we do business here. We track numbers because that's going to tell us when we can scale. That's going to tell us when we need to maybe move off certain software. Maybe we're spending money and things on software that we're actually not using. So having these metrics in place is going to help you to establish your firm and scale your firm. It's going to make sure that you know your numbers and that you actually receive a profit from it. And we're going to talk about that later. So tracking and having the right metrics to track is very important. And yes, I wish that I knew this when I first started. If you feel like me, it's like, why didn't anyone tell me this when I opened my firm umpteen years ago? One of the reasons is that they probably weren't doing it themselves, right? They were trying to just start. They just wanted to have a law firm. And I even started that way. I just wanted to have a firm. I wanted to practice law in my own way. And when, a partnership didn't work out because I thought that was the route I should go because it felt safe. When that didn't work out, it's like, okay, I'm just going to make it happen because I want to practice law. I did not do all this schooling and take the bar and get in all this debt to not practice law. So I am going to do it. And I wasn't thinking about metrics. First of all, because I didn't have any clients. So it's like, what metrics should I put in place? That actually is the absolute best time to put your SOPs and your metrics in place because you start to get in a groove of really, how am I operating? How am I doing things? And you start to think more like a CEO versus an attorney. An attorney is in the day-to-day and they're thinking about cases and clients and judges and those types of things. And how does the law affect this case? And, how is this client going to feel about this? And how can I prepare for mediation? And that's wonderful. And it's absolutely a part of practicing law. But the other part is ownership. And that's why you're here with the Attorney CheatCode Podcast, because we are talking ownership. And when you're thinking about ownership, you think in a different way. So yes, you're thinking about clients, but it's like, is this the type of client that I want? Or should I be updating my marketing so that it matches my client avatar, so that I am really pulling in the type of client that I want? I'm pulling in the caliber of client that I want. I'm servicing the community that I actually have a heart to serve. And so when we're thinking about metrics, it's CEO metrics, not the attorney metrics. That's a whole nother side of your practice. We are thinking of CEO metrics, the metrics that drive revenue, the metrics that drive profit, the metrics that will allow you to scale, and the metrics that will tell you when you need to pause or slow down. And I want you to think about these metrics in allowing your firm to stop operating in chaos. Again, whether you have one employee or none, whether you have 15 or however many, wherever you are, you still need a standard operating procedure. You still need to have goals that are written and defined, whether that is 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, so that you know where you're going. Because if you don't have a goal that is actually defined, if you don't have a place that you're trying to go, then one, what are you doing here? And number two, how will you know when you have arrived? If you don't have a vision and a goal in mind and actually defined, written down, how will you know when you have achieved that goal? How will you know when you've arrived at the place that you wanted to be if you don't even know what that place is? So we're going to talk today about the freedom metrics. The first thing I wanted to talk about today is your overhead. If you think about your overhead, what percentage of your net does your overhead actually consume? And think about it this way. Your overhead is what has to be paid before payroll, before the owner's draw, before any other expense. That can be a chain that is tied to the firm, something that is keeping the firm in a certain place. Sometimes that is okay. But for you and your firm, do you need that chain? Do you need that thick of a chain? Does it have to be as long as it is? You think about your lease, and you think about your overhead costs. You think about how much am I paying to be in this space? How much has to come out of, has to be paid each month before I can receive my profit, before I can work towards the freedom that I'm really working towards? What is keeping me from getting there? And your overhead is not just your lease space, but it also includes your payroll, which we're going to talk about next. It talks about your software, all of your monthly expenses, or even quarterly expenses, your insurances, whether that's malpractice insurance or your renter's insurance. All of those things are necessary when you're having a certain space and when you have your own firm, but is it necessary for yours? Is it necessary for you to have a brick and mortar, or can you have a virtual office? Can you have a combination of the two? Do you need a fully decked out office? Are all of your people in office, or do you just need a space for you and maybe a receptionist? You have to think about that because you want to practice law in the way that works for you, not in the way that has worked historically. The second thing we're going to track is your payroll. So you want to first, of course, think about your overhead, get your numbers in place, pause this right now and write it down. What does my overhead look like? How much of my money is already committed before I can make other decisions with it? And then move to payroll. You should have yourself on payroll. You should, and of course, speak to your CPA. I'm not, and I repeat, not for the people in the back, I am not giving tax advice. What I am saying is that you need to structure your business in the way that businesses are structured. So when you're thinking about your payroll, how much is going on in payroll? And then think about payroll from the point of view that payroll, which means that you and you have someone else on your team, that should be giving you capacity. As you add to payroll, as your payroll increases, your capacity should increase. Your dependency should decrease. People depending on you should decrease. You should be allowing yourself to grow in your zone of genius. Your payroll and the people that you bring onto your team should be giving you capacity towards freedom. They should be giving you capacity to do the things that you really want to do in the firm versus dependency. You're adding someone else to ask you more questions. You're adding someone else to put more things on your plate. You're giving them information, or you're giving them tasks, and they're bringing them right back to you instead of actually proceeding with what needs to be done. And you have to think about that when you're thinking about hiring people. If I hire this person, what does this position really look like? If I am, if I'm dreaming about this position and how it helps me, write that down. Again, pause the video and write that down. This is the position that I need, and this is what a win looks like in this position, and this is the freedom that this position will give me. This is the capacity that will increase for me when I have the right person in this position. And you have to think about you're delegating. You're delegating the execution of the thing, whatever that practice area is for you. You're delegating that, but you're keeping the authority. So yes, I have the authority to hire you, and I'm delegating the tasks to you to complete those tasks to ensure that, again, I have capacity, increased capacity, and then I'm actually able to operate in my zone of genius, and I'm able to do the things that I need to do for the firm. Now let's talk about profit and savings. And I touched a little bit on this earlier, but if you are not one receiving profit from your firm, then you may have something structured wrong. And if you're not setting aside for savings, then again, you have something wrong. And your profit and your savings, if you think about it, should give you the capacity, increased capacity and protection, capacity and space to think and to pause if you need to, capacity and space to grow in the way that you want to, capacity and space to make, really good decisions versus rush decisions or reactionary decisions. And one thing I want you to think about, it really, really pause and think about this, and I had to think about it myself, is a hard truth. If you received no new revenue in the next 30 days, would your firm survive? And we think about this from a personal standpoint. You hear all the time that people live check to check and that most people are one disaster, one emergency away from living in the streets. But if you think about your firm, is your firm 1 month away, 1 30-day cycle away from not receiving revenue? And again, I'm not praying this on anybody's firm. I'm not receiving it from my firm. And we are preparing just in case. So if your firm went 30 days without any new revenue, would it survive? What would that look like? And if you say, oh my goodness, I could not last, then you need to start beefing up your savings and you need to see what you have set aside in profit, because that's going to give you the space to actually thrive and actually be able to make decisions from a standpoint of power versus being reactionary versus, oh, this happened. Let me try to figure this out. Let me try to do something. The next thing also deals with money, and that's our taxes. So I want to talk about our family. Dear old Uncle Sam, he is coming for his money. Like, you already know what it is. He is coming. He wants it. He wants it on time. And then if you give it late, he got a penalty. So you want to make sure that you're not just thinking about taxes, but you're setting aside a percentage of everything that comes in for taxes. Again, talk to your CPA, even a tax attorney, whatever if you're one, surely you have to set aside. But speak to your CPA so they can help you understand what percentage of the income that comes into the firm needs to be set aside for taxes, whether that's 5%, 11%, 15%, making sure that you have a cushion so that if you receive a tax bill, then you're able to take care of that without an issue. And I say without issue because taking care of a $15,000, $40,000, $100,000 tax bill never is going to actually feel good. However, it's easier. It's an easier pill to swallow if you have the money set aside for it and you can say, okay, here it is, versus thinking, okay, well, I need to pull from payroll or I need to pull from my profit account because I don't have any money set aside to pay this tax bill. And that can cause so much stress to a business owner, not just for attorneys, but any CEO, any business owner. A tax bill can really be, it can make or break you. And we are not operating that way. So we're operating from a place of strength and power. So set aside money for, your tax bill. Think right now, how much are you setting aside from all of your income, from every dollar that comes in? How much is set aside for taxes? Let's talk about our operating account. Our operating account it should have an assignment. Every dollar that comes into operating should have an assignment. And so if you think about the structure, your money's coming in. It's like, okay, what do I need to pay out? What do I need to cover? What expense needs to be covered for my operating? What are the day-to-day costs of operating my firm? What am I putting aside for savings? And we talked about that, your profit and your savings and your taxes. But what money in the operating and what money is in the operating and what is the assignment for that money? This still, though, remains under your authority because all of this is about delegation and authority and operating as a CEO. You have to think about for yourself what is coming out for operating. One of the things that is helpful is like, okay, maybe I do lunch for my team once a week. So set aside whatever that cost is to do lunch or breakfast or a team meeting or whatever for your team each month. Because okay, well, this is coming from operating. I know that has to be covered. I know we have certain software that we're going to need, certain subscriptions that have to be paid for, my bar dues, my insurances, all of these things. Is that coming from your operating account, or do you have a special account for some of those things? You have to think about it. But even with that, you're saying to yourself and you're saying to the money, you have an assignment and you have a purpose, and this is your purpose. This is your assignment. You don't want to have to hold your breath when you're thinking about opening up your bank account. Like, oh my God, how much is in here, right? You want to make sure, again, you're operating from a point of knowledge and strength. So think about right now, How much do you keep in your operating account? Is it enough or do you need more? And that's thinking about after we've taken out taxes, how much do you normally have in your operating account? Because you may find that you have a surplus and some of that can go to your profit account. You're like, oh, okay, well, I have this that remains in there every month that we don't need necessarily to operate. So maybe I can take a percentage of that and add it to my profit or add it to my savings to hit some of those goals a bit sooner. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is trust accounting. And I don't play about this. This is tied to your bar card. So when you are operating with your trust account, one, make sure that you are following the rules of your state bar. Make sure that you are not commingling funds. Make sure that your rules about your trust accounting is non-negotiable. Make sure that you are removing funds that have been earned. Make sure that that trust account is crystal clear, that is squeaky clean, and you make sure that you have discipline. This is not something to be delegated. This is a point where you keep the authority and you make the decisions about how your trust account is handled and the funds that are removed from your trust account. There's nothing else to say about that. Protect your bar card, be smart. Okay, now here's the good part, the cheat code. When you're thinking about all of these different areas, the profit, the savings, the taxes, the operating, the income, the payroll, when you're thinking about each one of those areas, you want to think about judgment versus clarity. Is this a decision or is this an issue that I need to just give clarity to my team, or should I handle it myself? Does it require my actual judgment or clarity to the team? You have to think about that, because all of these different areas is so that we can achieve the freedom that we so desire, the freedom to live the life, create the firm of our dreams, to live the life of our dreams. So when you're thinking about the different areas of your firm, when you're thinking as a CEO, then you have to think about, okay, when it comes to this decision about the payroll, is someone else making the decision on that? When it comes to the decision about the structure of cases, for instance, is someone else making the decision about that? Or have I put in certain parameters to allow people to be successful? So for instance, you think about your admin team, you don't want them to come to you every time they have a question about spending a little money. So maybe you give them a threshold. If X, then Y, meaning if the expense is less than $150, then pay for it, send me the receipt. So now you can look at that later. And now you can put that back into, now you can, function that with your operating account, your savings account, or whatever the case may be. You're still keeping the authority, but you've delegated the execution of a particular task so that you can stay in your zone of genius, so that you can continue to operate as a CEO. You have to make sure that your team does not operate in chaos, which means that they have parameters, they have standard operating procedures, they have the knowledge of what is good, what is required, what is expected of me in this position, what is expected of me in a situation such as, like I said, the admin team needs to spend money, or even when it comes to your paralegals and your attorneys, if X then Y for them as well. If a client requests such and such, whatever that is, then go ahead and do it. Go ahead and answer it. Go ahead and respond. You don't need to come to me for that. You don't need to come have a conversation with me. You don't need to come and discuss it, because I've given you I've delegated that to you. I've delegated that task to you, and I've told you how to be successful. And that is what's most important, so that you can get back to making sure that this firm is operating in the way that it should be, and that you're able to track your metrics. That's the part of like payroll, right? Is that's increasing your capacity to make sure that when you're hiring people on, they're giving you more capacity to operate as a CEO, to enjoy the freedom that you so desire. I want you to do a little homework this week. Think about for yourself, what metrics am I actually tracking? Or what metrics did I get away from tracking? Maybe you were tracking them before and you got away from it because the firm got busy. Hey, kudos to you. And let's get back to our foundation of tracking the metrics that matter, making sure that we have a good foundation, make sure that we have clarity, so that as we continue to grow, we're growing smart and we're growing with knowledge, and we're achieving the freedom that we started the firm for. We're giving our family experiences that we wanted to do. We're actually able to cut the chain of being in the firm every single day and actually having the firm run and having people feel good about working with you, and that they're being successful and that they're giving a work product that is in line with what you expect. That is how to achieve true freedom in your law firm. I'm excited for you, and I want you to know that wherever you are is exactly where you need to be. You're not late, You're not behind. You are exactly where you need to be successful. Start today. Believe in yourself. Take one step forward. Pick one metric to track this week and really, truly track it. And then build on that. Add another one next week and start to see how your firm starts to take shape as you track those metrics. I'm looking forward to our next episode of the Cheat Code. I hope that you will join me. Again, my name is Alicia Jones, and I'll see you next time.